Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Holliston School Committee January 7th, 2021 School Committee meeting. It is 7:02. All members are present. I'm calling this meeting to order. Pursuant to the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 20, as well as the Select Board's emergency order dated March 16th, 2020, the Holliston School Committee will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the HCAT webpage within 24 hours in accordance with the governor's emergency action requirement of keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I ask that all participants who are remotely attending, please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak. At this time, I'll take a roll call attendance. Mr. Morton.
Present.
Mrs. Listevnik.
Present.
Dr. Savard.
Present.
Ms. Koshin.
Present.
Ms. Hanstead.
Present.
Ms. Naborski.
Present.
Mrs. Raffle. Present. Good evening and welcome. At this time, I will entertain a motion to participate remotely.
Moved by Dawn. Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by John, seconded by Cynthia. Roll call vote. Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Ms. Naworski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffle, yes. Okay, thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Great to see your smiling faces. I'd like to start tonight's meeting with just a brief moment of silence in the spirit of mindfulness. I think we all need to take a deep breath, take a moment to remember those who are suffering right now. I think the temperature is so high for so many different reasons. So I just want to take it down a notch. Just remember those people who are suffering, have been lost. And let's just try and be more unified. We're in this together. And we may have differing opinions just on the agenda items tonight. But we're in this together. And we can differ in opinion and still get along. So I'd just like to take a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna jump right in. It's great to see so many faces. We have a presentation with students this evening. We have our student reps here this evening, and I'm going to begin with our communications and our oral comments, and I would like to congratulate, this is a very bittersweet announcement for me, but Mrs. Mary Beth Numbers is retiring this month, and so I wanted to congratulate her, acknowledge her service, thank her for her service. And I just wanted us to have an opportunity to say thank you. We are going to miss seeing your smiling face in the halls. Mrs. Numbers have you been in second grade the entire time? No. Okay, so you'll share with us in a minute. But a little birdie told me that you have been in Holliston since 1997. Which based on my calculations is 24 years. You are a beloved member of the Placentino family community. St. Mary's, you've been a catechist, a lectern, and just an all-around awesome, wonderful human being. And we're just so thankful that we've had you and congratulate you and wish you well on your new chapter of your life where you get to spend some time with those absolutely adorable, gorgeous grandbabies. So Mrs. Numbers, if you'd like to say a word, but I would like to thank you on behalf of the community for all of your service.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Stacy asked me last evening if I would be willing to come and make an appearance this evening. And I decided I absolutely would make an appearance because I have things to say to you, not because I wanted anything said to me. But this is a very difficult time, and I am looking at a remarkable group of people. And I know that the people who are school committee people, you are volunteers. You expect nothing in return for the time investment you're making. And you are doing incredible work to maintain the admirable qualities of Holliston through a very difficult time. It's exceptionally hard to be flexible and resilient during these times, given the challenges you're facing. But there's no question you're making vital decisions every day that are keeping this town afloat, and that it is the future of the students and the future of the town that you are creating. You're creating that possible success as an end result of these very difficult decisions and conversations that you have to have. And I can truly understand how difficult those conversations are because I participated in them for at least 15 years in my leadership roles in the community. And now that I can look back in hindsight at those last, I was there 23 years, but raising kids is too difficult. So you're very busy with that and you can't do the leadership part until sometimes that job is done. Some of you who do both, I don't know how you do it. I admire you totally. But in the last 15 years, there were a lot of difficult conversations. And during the time that they were being held, it seemed like there was a lot of effort being put into that. The effort in hindsight is all worth it. Every minute of it is worth it. When you can look back and you can say, there is success in the town because of what I did, because of what you did, it'll all be worth it in the end. So I know when you get to the middle of the year, when it's January, you're in some of the toughest decision-making times of the year. And I really want you to take a minute and pat yourselves on the back. So a moment of silence is fine, Stacy, but even beyond a moment of silence, let's have a moment of celebration for all the work you've invested, the time you've invested, and the successes that that has brought to the children and young adults that are in our school district and ultimately to our town in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to share where your what your plans are now that after
All good plans, all good plans. I have a grandson being born in February in Indianapolis. I have a 2.5-year-old grandson who will be the older brother. So my intent in February, as soon as I retire, is to be out in Indianapolis taking care of the older one while the younger one is making his way into this world. And I've already applied for online teaching because Holliston taught me some great skills that I can now take to a part-time basis and be able to continue to enjoy the children without the demands of a full-time job.
That's awesome. That is awesome. We wish you the best. Is there anyone on the committee or administrators who would like to say anything? Anne Louise?
Oh, gosh, Mary Beth. I don't even know where to begin, but I couldn't let the moment pass without saying something to you because I think I've known you since the day you moved in. We met first through church at St. Mary's, and then, of course, on school committee when I joined 9 years ago, and you were president of HFT while I was chairing the committee. And through that opportunity, not only a professional relationship developed, but a really deep friendship. And, there's no one else I would have entrusted to take my daughter to another continent and introduce her to so many wonderful things in Uganda, and just getting to know your own family and just how amazing they are and what a reflection of you as an incredible parent and educator. That just says a whole lot. And I'm so grateful to you for all that you've done over the years for Holliston, for our students. really, it wouldn't be the same place without you. It's been a pleasure every single minute. Even when there were moments where we were trying to sort things out, I always knew we could sit over coffee and figure it out. And you always had brilliant suggestions. And I just want to thank you for every ounce of collaboration and support and friendship. So thank you.
Anybody else from the committee? Okay. Any of the, Lisa?
I almost forgot to unmute. I just think, Mary Beth, you and I don't know each other well, and I got to know you, I knew of you when I bought a book from you at the book fair, Kintu and the Fairy Bee, which is great for kids, for any of you who don't have it. And I just heard so many wonderful things about you after I started asking around, who is this teacher who wrote this cool book? And I think more than anything, it speaks volumes about you that you would want to share this moment by saying such nice and warm things to us. I think that speaks volumes about your character. And I just wanted to wish you the best. And I hope you have a chance to write another book.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
Hi, Mary Beth. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Here we are wanting to say nice things about you, and thank you so much for working on behalf of the children of Holliston. My kids did not have the benefit of having your teaching. We moved here when my oldest was in second grade, so, but we had gotten to know each other through a school committee, and I just so appreciate that you've spent so much time of your career in this community and being with us, and for you to spend this last moment to thank us for all that we do. I really appreciate your kind words and your thoughts, and I wish you all the best. And I do hope you write another book and you enjoy those grandchildren, and just thank you so much.
Andy?
Mary Beth, I'm very sad to hear that you're retiring. Last spring, I admit, I sat over my daughter's shoulder and watched you masterfully read reading a children's book to a class of kids via Zoom like you've done it your entire life. And having taught this way, I know how challenging that is, but it was something that you really just kind of jumped into feet first and really adapted to very well. And it just shows the years of experience that you have. So you're going to be missed, and you're going to be very difficult to replace. And thank you for everything you did for my kids and for all the other kids of Holliston. We appreciate it. Thank you.
And Andy's daughter is unforgettable and can never be replaced. She is a forever memory in my mind.
Uh-huh. Did any of the administrators want to say anything? Susan?
So I asked people, what do we do for retirements in Holliston? Because I had no idea. And normally I love to try to do breakfast with our retirees at the end of the year. Is something that I've done in the past, which I know will not be happening this year, and clearly right now in mid-year. But I would have invited you back, Mary Beth, if you were in the area, if we did that this year. I was thinking about how unfortunate it is that I didn't have a lot of time to get to know you because of circumstances and time of year. But actually, because of circumstances, I probably got to know you a lot more than I would have in a normal year. So I'm glad, albeit most of it was via Zoom, I'm glad that we did have the opportunity to get to know each other. We had some interesting conversations, and very, we had some really good meetings of the minds in both our smaller meetings and then our larger groups as well. So I really am glad that I got the opportunity to get to know you. And it was very exciting to hear that you wrote a children's book. I did not know that. So I would love to, Lisa, send me the title so I can look it up, because I did not know that before. So that's a cool thing to hear about you. And I do wish you the best with your grandchildren. I too am going to be a grandmother soon, so I'm very excited about that. And I can't imagine what a great opportunity this is for you. So enjoy that next chapter. Write your next book, whether physically or your next chapter of your life.
Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Numbers. Thank you for joining us. You're welcome to stay if you want to watch the students on service learning, but you can watch us on chat too. Thank you so much. We'll miss you. And committee members, does anyone have anything for public comment tonight from the committee? Anyone? Lisa?
I just wanted to give a shout out to CPAC, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. They had raised $1,690 during their jack-o'-lantern extravaganza in the fall, and they used it to give back. So they just set up a program. The applications were due recently, I think just in the last few days, that parents who wanted something in particular for a child with special needs in Holliston could apply for, you know, like a weighted blanket or lessons to X, Y, or Z or something like that. And so they're using the money to give back to the community, which is awesome. And just a quick plug for their next event, which is February 4th, 7 p.m. virtual, of course. It's a joint event for parents on learning more about executive functioning. And we're doing it with Natick and Newton, I think, through a group called Engaging Minds. And they have stuff on their Facebook page. And then anyone who's involved with, I think the announcement went out to everybody who has a child with an IEP. It's coming up and sounds really cool and something a little bit different. So just wanted to give them a plug. That's it for me.
Thank you. Keith?
And not everybody may know this, but Mary Beth Numbers was an SSA for a period as well. So let me just throw that in. It's the time feedback.
Okay. Any other news from the committee? All right. Cynthia and then Catherine.
I was just reminded that I got an email from PTO. They're supposed to have their meeting on January 12th, but they've canceled that. And they just wanted you to keep in mind that their townwide PTO grants are happening between January 8th and February 19th. And they'll be doing a townwide PTO meeting on February 23rd at 7 p.m. to talk about the teacher grant vote. And then their next regular meeting won't be till March 9th at 3 p.m. So that's all I wanted to share.
Yes, that's the middle school meeting that was canceled for January.
Yes, I'm sorry, the middle school PTO.
Catherine?
I just want to acknowledge the Spirit Week that happened at Miller and Placentino the week before Christmas. There's no any extracurriculars happening at Miller this year, as it stands, of course. But it was impressive that the administration took that on and let the kids get that hyped up the week before Christmas. But it was absolutely adorable, and it was really well planned and attended. And for anyone who doesn't follow them on Instagram or social media, there was a Dress to Impress day, and there is few things cuter than watching the Placentino kids walk into school with their fanciest clothes on. It was absolutely adorable. So I just wanted to, there's not a lot that happens in the, sort of extracurricular realm for them. So I just wanted to say it was absolutely adorable. I've never had an easier time getting my kids out the door in the morning because they were so excited to be all dressed up. So thank you to everybody who made that happen.
That's great. All right. And students. So Elise and Julia, how are you girls?
Hi, we're good. Okay, so right now our winter sport athletes are just waiting and hoping that their seasons are going to be able to start soon. And then today, a lot of teachers were allowing an open discussion for their classes with everything that happened yesterday, just to let students be able to express their thoughts and how they were feeling about it. And then lastly, Yearbook has been working to reach out to get information. I believe they sent something out for teachers to get stories, I think. And then there's a survey for our seniors to fill out with senior quotes and all that information.
The National Honor Society is currently working to organize a Valentine's Day candle fundraiser. So students will be sending information out about that to people that they know. And they have also been working on sending emails out to faculty and staff just to thank them for all the hard work that they've been doing, especially during this difficult time for teaching and We all really, really appreciate that. Also, the chorus has been sending out different videos. All different groups have been sending out virtual projects that we've put together. And Mr. Everett has been emailing that around, so I'm sure a lot of people have seen them. But they've all been working very hard on those. And theater has been continuing to work on the playwriting process and has finished casting the one acts and is now into rehearsals on those. And the student council is currently has some different things in the works for Teacher Appreciation Week. They're not sure what it's going to be yet, but they do have things that they are planning to do, even though things are a little bit different this year.
Great, thank you. And I do understand that there is an Adopt a Senior. The senior class parents, class of 2021, are doing a fundraiser. As soon as I get more details, I've seen some posts on Facebook, but I haven't actually had an opportunity to pay attention. I too will share that on the elementary class pages. So for people who are watching, ask your friends about the Adopt a Senior program. Thank you, ladies. It's nice to see you again. Administrators, does anyone have anything for open comment? No? Okay, great. And with that, Mrs. Mills and students, thank you for your patience. It is a pleasure to have you. This is one of my favorite classes to hear about. This is a passion of mine. So without further ado, Mrs. Mills, I'll have you introduce the students and your class.
Awesome. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm just going to pull up just a really brief PowerPoint that gives you an overview of the class. And then I'm going to hand it over to my students. So we have two groups of students here tonight that are going to talk about the projects they've been working on this semester. So just give me one moment. Okay. So assuming everybody can see my screen okay. So this class is called Service Learning, a Call to Action, and I'm a social studies teacher at the high school. And this is one of the many new electives that we are offering this school year. And this is the second year that the course has been offered, and it has grown, which I am so excited about. So last year we had one section of students, of about 20 students that took the course. The picture here in front of you is the group that went through the course last year. And then this year, the program grew to two sections. So we have about 44 students taking the class this year, which is really exciting. So just to give you a little idea of what community service learning is and what makes it different from just service, doing community service. So it's a method of learning that challenges students to identify, research, propose, and implement solutions to real needs in their school or their community. So what does that really mean? Well, there's different components of CSL, and tonight I'm going to talk about one part of it, which is the service learning projects. I'll jump ahead here, and the place where we've started are focusing on what are the local, national, and global needs within our community. At the beginning of the course, the students and I, we started off by looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and learning just more about them, again, at a local level, a national level, and a global level. And that really sets the stage for the work that they're going to be doing for the rest of the semester. So while researching these various needs, they, at this time, think about, well, what are they interested in? What are they passionate about? What skills do they have as individuals, but as groups? And while they're doing that, they start to form groups. And within these groups, they find what is the commonality here? What community need do they want to learn more about and create a project around and try to come up with some kind of solution to the need and to the issue? And so they then spend the next 2 months planning and implementing a project. So they come up with a project proposal, a plan, they have their goals, they have their initiatives, One aspect of their project is they have to collaborate and work with a community partner, whether it's an individual or a group that's within the school community or an organization outside the school community. And so they'll work together with that community partner to implement their project. A big part of the project is, yes, trying to meet that need and give back to the community, but it's also about educating themselves about the community need and also educating their community about it. We're at, the point of the semester where the students have really been implementing their projects. So tonight they're going to share with you the work they've been doing over the past couple of months. And then also where they're at in their projects, and they're going to be wrapping things up really within the next few weeks. Near the end of the course, we'll have a celebration evening, and that has changed because of the pandemic. So we're trying to come up with a different format for that evening, but there will be a chance for the students really to showcase their projects to the community. What I love about the class is it's so different, I think, than anything the students really have experienced or have been exposed to, especially in the history department. There's a variety of skills, of life skills that they are exposed to and, work on and build. So like organization, time management, group work, cooperation, communication, problem solving, accountability, leadership. Something that the students often talk about is they enjoy the course because they're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones coming up with the plan. They're the ones making, these decisions that are pretty significant and then having to come up with some solutions to any, troubles or issues that they're facing. I, as the teacher, really serve as more of an advisor and guider through that process. This last slide has a QR code. So something that the students have been doing is they've been working on a class Google site. So if you are interested in learning more about the projects, we have about 16 projects going on right now. Tonight you'll hear about 2. But if you take your phone and open up your camera, you can scan the QR code and it will take you to the Google site that is on the high school website under the Service Learning Academics tab. So feel free to do that if you would like. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand it over to the students. So we have 2 groups. So we have Food for Thought, which is from one of my sections of the class. We have Emily Bernardo, who is here. We have Megan Parnell, and then Marie Meisner is here as well. They have 2 other group mates who are unable to make it this evening, but they're going to represent their group. And then we have another group coming from the other class, which is Isabella Rahim and Avery Culver, who are going to speak on behalf of their group. And their group is called Mission Hugs, Not Drugs. So who wants to go first? Do I have any takers? Isabella, you want to go?
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, so my name is Isabella Rahim, and I'm working with Annika Rose and Avery Culver. And so our project was Mission Hugs, Not Drugs. And we decided that our goals were to educate our peers and community on the dangers and harms of substance abuse and the substance use disorders. And so what we really wanted to do was raise money for a local rehabilitation center or some kind of local center that we could make an impact on, as well as educating our peers. So first of all, we researched for a community partner that we could partner with, and we looked at many different local centers, and we finally decided on the New England Recovery Center, which is located in Westboro. So while we were researching, we found their website and we read all about them. And they cater directly to their patients' needs, and they're very personal with their patients. So I really like their approach and just their overall appearance on website. And they were very easy to communicate with. They communicated right back with us, so they were very easy to partner with. And then as well, we asked them if we could have a speaker. And so they provided us with a speaker that will be presenting to 2 freshman health classes next Wednesday. So we have that planned out. And then we have also had some fundraisers that Avery can talk about.
So I'm Avery. So when we emailed the man named David who works for the health center, we decided together that we're gonna donate some of the money that we raised, and with the other money, we're gonna provide the people at the recovery center with like winter jackets and hats and gloves for the winter. So to raise the money, we started with a candle drive, which we started in like mid to late October, I think. So we just like made a Google form. We had ordered like a large pack of candles from Amazon, and we made a Google form. We like linked one of our Venmos to it, so people would just fill out the Google form, and we personally delivered them to their houses, just like COVID friendly. So from that candle drive, we made $405, which was really exciting. And then I think at the end of, then on November 11th for Veterans Day, we candles were like supposed to be lit. We don't know if people really did that. We had a few people like send us pictures of them lighting their candles on Veterans Day, which was cool to see. Yeah, that was fun. And we also made like social media accounts where we posted about the candles and where we just to like connect Veterans Day and our candle drive. We would post like about veterans that struggle with disorders. So yeah, that was cool. And then at like the end of November, we started our second fundraiser, which we did a little local business raffle. So we started by just like calling local businesses like in Holliston mostly, and then we did like the Muffin House and Ashland Ale House. But they're mostly Holliston located businesses. We would just call them and tell them about our project and what we're doing and why we're raising money. We would just ask if they'd be willing to or able to make a donation. Most places did gift cards. We had actually the school store and the high school donate some school apparel. Like we had, I think, sweatpants, a long sleeve shirt, and the freshman class, or the sophomore class officers now, they donated hand sanitizer and like a little Holliston tumbler, which is really cool. And then we had some like the new bee company sent us donated a collection of honey products, which was fun. But they were mostly gift cards, so we organized them into 5 different baskets, just like grouped in the same subjects. And we did the same thing. We did the Google form and the Venmo, and we drew the winners on December 15th, I believe, and we hand-delivered the baskets. And so from the raffle, we made $772, which is really exciting. We had an original goal of $1,000, which we surpassed then. But we still had like a month after with the class and with their projects, so we decided to make a GoFundMe, which we only made $75 from, but it's still a good amount. So in all, we made $1,205. And so we're gonna spend $500 to buy the winter clothes for the people staying in the recovery center. And we are using the rest to just donate to New England Recovery Center, which we'll probably be doing within the next week and a half or so, which is exciting.
Okay, so Emily or Marie or Megan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So my name is Marie Meisner, and I'm a junior, and I am part of the Food for Thought group. So my group wanted to tackle the issue of food insecurity in our country, especially following the pandemic. A lot of people are struggling to get food on the table because there's a lot of uncertainty about like where they're going to get their food, like if they have enough money to do so. So we decided to tackle that issue. And yes.
All right. Hi, I'm Megan Parnell, and I'm just going to turn my camera off so hopefully it won't be too glitchy. But I'm just going to kind of start off with the community need. Just some like facts we kind of covered going into this project, like our very first thoughts that we researched about. And so I have over 30 million children rely on free or reduced meals from school. And now with the pandemic, 15% of those students are getting lunches they need. And hunger affects over 50 million people in America. So that's 1 in 6 of U.S. population and 1 in 5 children.
So in like the beginning of our project, we had to like research a lot. And one of, I think probably the scariest statistics we found was that it was predicted that more than 130 million people would face like a food crisis in 2020. And that 1 in 7 Americans like rely on food pantries or food services to get their meals. And that brings me to probably the most exciting part of our project, which is our partnership with Daniel's Table. They're a nonprofit food bank in Framingham. Their whole mission is to promote food security and nutritional education. And we were so privileged to get a chance to go and visit them. We got to sit down and interview and talk to the founder, Alyssa. She's a co-founder along with her husband. Her last name is Daniels, hence the name. And she was just so nice. We had a really good conversation. Then we got to tour the facility. It was super cool. Could I actually like, pull up a picture? Because like screen share, is that allowed? Hold on. Okay, I just want to show a really cool picture. Can everyone see? Hopefully. Okay. So basically when we like entered, this was like all the groceries that they were going to like give out tomorrow to these families that had like sign up for them. So it was just so crazy to like walk in and just like see all these groceries. And I know it kind of looks small in the picture, but like it was like a lot of groceries. So hold on. Yeah. So Daniel's Table is just a really cool organization, and they have this like fund a family program kind of thing where it's like $50 provides 25 meals. So I think that would lead on to the next portion.
Okay, so I'm going to just talk about the kind of advertising we did for the whole project and how we kind of got the word out and how we're kind of raising money. So kind of the first part of our project, which was right about Thanksgiving time, we had the thought to raise money for Daniel's Table because we were participating in the funding of a family program. This seemed kind of like the best path for us to follow because at first, when we were first partnering with them, we didn't really know if like what kind of food they exactly needed or how we wanted to like set up a donation or fundraiser with COVID going on. So we thought the best kind of path to take would be to raise money with a GoFundMe. So I set up the GoFundMe where people can donate it, and I can put the link in the comment section when I'm done talking. And to kind of advertise this GoFundMe, our main kind of advertisement was with a QR code, which we put on a little bit more with some more advertising we're doing. And lastly, I just want to talk about we have an Instagram, which I can also put the link in the comment section. But we kind of on the Instagram post about
Mrs. Mills, it looks like she's muted.
Okay, yeah, Megan, I didn't hear the second half of that, but I think you were just talking about the social media and getting the information out to the public. Okay, and was there anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, so after Thanksgiving, we decided we wanted to have another fundraiser to help support Daniel's Table. And so we reached out to them and asked if there were any like particular items they were in need of, like before the holidays and such. And they sent us a list. And so we made a flyer to put in select neighborhoods in Holliston as part of like a food drive. So we could like pick up the food on a specific date. Ours is actually this Saturday, which is quite exciting. And we are going to be picking up the food. And then we're going to give that to Daniel's Table, hopefully next week. And that about puts us at where we are right now. So,
Marie, do you want to give us some details about the food collection for Saturday? Or you still collect? Do you want to just give yourself a little plug here?
Yeah, so like I said, we are only doing it in a couple neighborhoods in Holliston since it'll be like easier to pick up that way. But they are looking for like soup cans and like a couple vegetables and things to donate. And yeah, we also created a flyer and that's how we spread the word. Like we would put them in people's mailboxes, and that's how they would like figure out like, oh, this organization is doing this, and then this is how we can help by doing this, that, and the other thing. So yes.
Yeah, so it's like a selective pickup drive, but I can put the link to the GoFundMe, because another part was that like we realized a lot of people may not be able to like get like physical things, especially since right now with COVID, a lot of people may not want to like go to the store and pick up all these different things. So we also gave the option to donate to our GoFundMe. I don't know if everyone heard Megan, but we've already raised like $500, I think, on there, which is like, I don't know, like 75 meals, I think. So I'll like put that in the chat right now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So does anyone from the committee have questions for either group? I just want to say thank you all. Really impressive and creative and just, I love this type of stuff. But does anyone from the committee have any questions or comments? Anyone? Okay. All right. Dr. Patello.
Just a comment. I wanted to thank Mrs. Mills and all the students for speaking tonight and for exhibiting, the clear passion that you've developed for these issues and the awareness that you're both building in yourselves and in others. I think it's great that, it's so clear that it's sincere and genuine in your desire to impact the community, and we're thankful for that, and thankful for Mrs. Mills for creating this opportunity for you. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Lisa?
I just wanted to say thank you too. And I think one of the things I love most about this is that we often forget that while we're trying to prepare future engineers and doctors and nurses and teachers, we want to prepare kids for work in the nonprofit world, because that's really important too. And it's incredible. And I think that this, while I'm sure not all of you plan to go on in that direction, I think this is really an important foundation no matter what you end up doing. And I'm just so happy to see us forging this path in Holliston. So thank you.
Yeah, well done, everyone. And Mrs. Mills, we definitely want you open invitation. I'm so excited for you for the success of your program and in the classes building. So well done. Thank you, everybody. Students, our student representatives, absolutely, you're welcome to sign off. I know, school's important. Go do your homework. Great to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. All right. This, I asked Lisa Aronian from now on to include on the agenda the reports from the subcommittees. So they had been on the agenda and then COVID hit and then we took them off. So I'm not expecting anyone to share out anything tonight unless you have something. But I just want you to be mindful that we'll leave that on here. So if budget, policy, superintendent evaluation, and communications, if anyone has things to report out, we'll have it on the agenda from now on. Okay, let's jump into old business. Same old topic. Susan, you want to start us off on the update?
Should I start with the good news?
Great.
I do have a couple good things to talk about, exciting, even though it's COVID related. We did find out that Chromebooks were delivered 2 months early. The order that we had put in recently arrived on January 4th. So that was nice because usually we're hearing that the Chromebooks have been significantly delayed. And that was the reason Keith had asked the committee to approve that expenditure earlier this year so we get them in. So great news to have those in. And then also just found out a few hours ago that, you know what, we've been meeting with the town on trying to figure out how to do testing, if we can do more testing for PCR, symptomatic people, asymptomatic people, close contacts, all of the above. And we've been not able to get there yet. But we are also concerned about getting vaccinations started. And our school nurses, as of yesterday, were just added to the DESE expectation that nurses at the school level are now considered in phase 1. But I have even better news than that because, drum roll, thanks to the efforts of our incredible nurse leader, Lynn, has managed to get Natick to help us get our vaccinations on Monday for our school nurses. So I was shocked to find that out just right before this meeting, a couple hours before this meeting. So I can't thank Lynn enough for her yeoman's efforts for that. I never thought, she and I have been meeting regularly and we've been tossing around ideas, see if we can link on with other towns that have gotten the vaccinations. And lo and behold, she managed to make it happen. So she's my miracle worker and I'm very excited about that. And this is also a very important thing because we've been trying to figure out ways. A couple weeks ago, some towns were able to do some consortiums together. And because we're such a small entity, we are not able to get enough of a pool together to get vaccinations sent to us. And there has to be a whole process in place. So Holliston is not large enough. But some of the smaller towns did merge together and were able to put together a process so that they can get vaccinations as a group. And that's why Lynn is able to latch on through Natick. And thank you to Natick for allowing that. But we would like to try to find out a way not only to get the vaccinations, but other ways to get some more testing in place. And the PCR machines are being purchased by some towns. We've been looking into that for weeks, Lynn and I, and trying to come up with a solution for that. Keith's been trying to help us with that. It's really something we'd like to try to get the town to purchase because we need to have a plan in place for if we're going to get one. They're not very expensive. It's about $4,500, but it would make sense for it to be a town purchase and that we would work together to come up with a plan for how to implement some of those testing. We wouldn't be able to do it for all cases, but we could start with potentially staff first, maybe do close contacts. We could put together a protocol, which we'll be working on in the next couple of days. But I did talk with our town administrator, emergency management director, and our health director about this yesterday, and we were seeing if they could come up with an idea for that. So we would like the school committee to consider voting on petitioning the select board on Monday to purchase that for the schools, for the town, however you want to look at it. But we would like you to vote on putting a motion forward to request that from the select board, and we would put that on the agenda for Monday.
Moved by Stacy.
Seconded by Lisa.
So in all seriousness, yes, I absolutely. First of all, Lynn, thank you so much. We literally just had this conversation yesterday afternoon, Susan and I was inquiring about what our plans were for a rollout for vaccinations and et cetera, et cetera. So that's not the conversation we had yesterday. So that is awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's so super exciting. But yes, I do think we should petition the select board. Anne Louise?
I do think we should petition them only because it will give us more control and access. Not only, but because it does all of that, and I think that's wonderful. But I am wondering at this time, if I'm not mistaken, the FDA has approved the home-based test that's very low cost and very rapid. And if we can't, and I could be wrong, Catherine, you might know, but can we get information on that and get that out to the community? Because I think that could potentially go a long way toward, sort of padding the testing, if you will, with other resources.
Yeah, I think we need to turn over every rock. And honestly, I have other updates today from DESE. We had a meeting with the commissioner, and it sounds like there might be a process in place very shortly through DESE, through the state, EPH, that we might be able to get on-site testing for a potentially free, which is never free, because when it might be free for part of it and you pay a certain fee, but supposedly there might be an ability for school districts to get a 6-week kind of trial. And then after the 6 weeks, you probably have to purchase it. So just came out today, this information, so I don't have those details, but I think we try all of these things and see which one we can get to move the fastest. But the $4,500 cost for the machine is not that insignificant. However, before I meant to add on to that, it is possible that that we won't be able to get one still, even if we get it approved, because as you know, things are going like hotcakes here for the right reasons. However, a backup plan to that is that Ashland may be able to allow us to work with them on that. They have already gotten one. So again, these are all ongoing. We're doing multiple different things. We're not just trying one. So the backup to the backup for the PCR is that maybe Ashland will allow us to work with them. I'm wondering, I talked to Lynn about putting together a plan that maybe we could actually have our nurses help with some of the testing. If they got vaccinated, obviously they'd get overtime. I mean, they need to be paid for their time. Maybe some of the EMTs in town. These are all ideas that Lynn and I threw out yesterday. So Keith, you were on that meeting, weren't you? To the town to see, we'll do whatever we can to problem solve with you. Please, if you can help us, we'll help try to get the manpower and things like that. So that is, a piece of it as well.
So I just have a couple of quick questions. I want to make sure I'm clear. The $4,500 would be coming from the town budget and not from the school budget. And right, it would be a resource for the town.
It would be, yes, for all of us, okay. Potentially. But it also is we have the funding on the town through is it still CARES money, Keith? It was CARES money that carried over. So they could do it if they wanted to as the schools purchase out of CARES. But I think it makes more sense. They can decide how they want to do it. The town could buy it and the schools could have it, but it makes sense for them to have access to it too, because we would need to work collectively.
You're right. I just wanted to clarify it's not coming out of our direct operating budget. Even if it was our CARES. That was sort of the first question. The second question is the machine itself is a processing machine, if I'm not mistaken, but don't we still need the test kits? And how does that get funded?
Yes, so that is also a piece of it. There's a cost to that, and we would have to roll it in. I don't have all the details yet because this is moving so fast, so we're still researching. We sent some information to the town. Chief Cassidy has been, they're trying to get some information on it as well.
I do think that's a critical piece, Susan, and I don't want to delay the motion or vote to approve the purchase of the machine, but I do think that vote should be contingent upon understanding the cost for the test kits and the availability to get those test kits, because at the end of the day, this is like the Gillette razor example. The handle itself is only a fraction of the cost, and all the blades are what really drive revenue, right? So the test kits are where the cost is going to be for us, and we need to understand what that cost is over a potential, as a town, over a potential population and time period. And if we can't afford that, then the machine doesn't make sense. Or if and I'm assuming we can't afford it, but it also matters if we can get the test kits. If they're going to be significantly delayed, then the machine's going to just sit there. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. And the problem is these things are happening so fast. If we don't try to move on them, it's going to be, it may be very well too late.
I'm not saying delay. I'm just saying.
I agree with you. There's so many pieces. Today, I also was on a county meeting, and some of the other towns are giving some, I'm trying to gather all these pieces. the tests are dropping significantly in cost is what I'm hearing, but I've got to get the different tests. But also, this is also beyond my purview. I mean, I really need help from our health experts, which would be the health department. You know, some of this work is going to be dug in. So it's a team approach, and that's why we did ask Scott Moles and Chief Cassidy to help with this process. So I think that contingency would be a good way to go, but I think that trying to, in conjunction with, you know, having these all overlap and try to get some of them going, because it is getting late as we go, and then we find out it's late on one thing, but then another door is opening. So I just want to make sure we try to reach every avenue we can to get going on one of these directions.
Dawn?
So I would actually like us to get going on multiple directions here. I am very much in favor of making this motion and pushing for the PCR testing machine to be purchased. But in reality, this is probably testing in our school district 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks from now. There are other things that could be available sooner. Ginkgo Bioworks is running a 5-week free pilot program, but it ends by the beginning of February. So the time to apply for us would be now if we were hopeful that we could have that testing for the last 2 weeks in January. So that's something else to consider. I did want to just talk about other school districts that have implemented this: Medway, Wellesley, Hingham, Newton, Watertown. Other school districts that are looking to implement this: Wayland, Belmont, Weston, Framingham. This is after a conversation I had with a Newton school committee member who's part of a collaborative that I've joined called Safer Teachers, Safer Schools, and they're working on implementing testing in each of the school districts. But I do think we should try to be running with this in multiple directions, meaning if Ginkgo Bioworks wants to offer a free 5-week testing program, let's get in on it. Let's try and run this operationally until we can get this PCR machine, because it's going to take weeks. And we have transmission rates of, not transmission rates, but positivity rates in 8% now. So we need to be testing. One thing to consider that Somerville is doing right now is using their EMTs to help with testing. My understanding is if you're over 14, a nurse or an EMT has to witness the swabbing. Watertown is setting it up as a drive-through, just like that phenomenal drive-through that Lynn and other staff at HBS helped organize back in October to do our flu clinic. So all things to consider, but I'd like to run it, you know, let's do multiple things, be applying for different programs along with pushing for this machine.
Yeah, in all honesty, I think it might be our best bet might be to combine with some of these towns that already are in the process, because they've already pulled the trigger on getting some of these things. So I do wonder if that, so I want to look into all these multiple things as well. And the fact that Ashland is willing to maybe work with us, but again, that has to be the town. I mean, it's not a school thing, that's a town thing. So Travis has offered to help us with those things as well. So Lynn has sent him information. So, you know, we'll be working with them collectively over the next couple of days to see if we can help push some of the towns to support us in that, because everybody wants to help one another right now.
Mm-hmm. Cynthia?
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, echo the same sentiments as Dawn just expressed too. You know, doctors' offices are having trouble getting these machines still. I mean, they've ordered them back in September and they're still waiting. So I feel like it does make sense for us to, you know, pursue every avenue that we can. So thank you for that, Susan.
Lisa?
Just want to add my very strong support for exploring different avenues simultaneously. I think that's great, and I'm really happy to hear that we're doing that. I think, you know, like most of us, I never thought we would be open with numbers this high, and I think it's amazing the job that the schools have done. But the numbers are scary, and with this new variant, it's just feels like it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I feel like the main key right now, the missing piece to us being able to remain open, is that testing piece. And I'm just really hopeful that one of these things works out. I think it's worth saying that, you know, I wish the state, you know, we're a small district, and I really wish the state had jumped on this, you know, months ago and had the wherewithal to push it through and make sure that schools got some form of testing, even if it was staff only, whatever. I just can't believe that. I'm frustrated we live in a society where we can test, you know, NBA players or whatever every day or however they're doing it, but we can't get anything for schools. It's really frustrating. And I wish that we didn't have to scramble at the local level, but I appreciate everything that the administration is doing to scramble at the local level. So thank you.
Susan, do you need any resources in terms of people power to be researching these avenues? Because I want to just remind the committee that we're a small district and we have only so many people who are trying to keep up with this research and touching base with everyone. We have one superintendent, one assistant superintendent. So do you need, for lack of a better term, manpower? Is there something we can do to help support you? You know, let us know.
Yeah, and Dawn has been doing the work on the ginkgo testing, and I think you were going to do a webinar as well on that, Dawn, correct? So we can talk further maybe tomorrow.
I attended that today, so now they'll send the.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. She's been great helping, and Lisa Koshin as well. So we're all, if there are certain things as I move forward, absolutely, we've been trying to divide and conquer, if you will, and that's why we beseeched the town. Travis Ahern has offered to reach out to different entities for us, so we're all kind of doing this pieces. But it gets complicated to try to, if we're all over the place too. So I'm going to try to put together a list of these things together tomorrow so I can sort of see where we are, because it's just happening so fast. I honestly can't keep up right now as to where we are in each item. So Dawn, I'll touch base with you either by email and we can follow up on that. And Keith, I know, had been working a little bit on some of the costs of the tests. So Medway was doing it for all employees. And I think initially Keith was told that it was $7,000 per week for about 290 employees. However, we didn't necessarily know if we were going to do surveillance testing or just start, you know, we have to prioritize. We might start with people that were close contacts and or symptomatic situations. The other piece I found out today is it's very likely that the Abbott Binax testing that the state gave us, which we were told was free, again, is not free because you have to pay for the disposal of things, and you know there's multiple pieces to that. So we have, I think, 500. Is it, Keith, do you recall if it's 500 right now that we have? And we have not started using it because of the process we have to get to. And also, in all honesty, we don't really want our nurses administering these tests to symptomatic people if they haven't been vaccinated. So Monday is so exciting because it can also help us with all of these pieces. So I did find out today, and I followed up with Anne Marie Stronach at DESE to find out if this is accurate, but the Abbott Binax testing was only supposed to be used for asymptomatic people. So if they were already in school, we've talked about it before, we might be able to test them if they came in school and then got symptomatic. Now they're saying it might be accurate for asymptomatic. So if that's true, that might be another door that will open. And again, it wouldn't be for everybody, but it would be for maybe some close contact situations. So there are a lot of items in the burner here, and it's very complicated. So I'll try to put a list of all these things together, share out, and maybe we can divide up a little bit more.
Definitely. Do you want us to take the vote now on reaching out to the select board? Or do you want me to wait until you're done with your update?
No, why don't we vote on that? And then I can just give us some other items as well.
Okay, so is there a motion to, I guess you had it, Susan, did you have it written out what you wanted the motion to be?
I thought you made the motion, Stacy.
I think you did, didn't you?
I said it in jest, and then I sort of had, wanted to have conversation about it. So I really want to official.
I would say I'd like you to vote on a motion to request that the select board allow CARES money to purchase, the school committee would have them purchase a PCR machine on behalf of the schools and or town.
Okay, moved by Stacy.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Stacy, seconded by Cynthia. All in favor. Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi, yes. That is great. Do you need us to attend, some of us to attend the select board meeting, or is this more of a conversation with Travis?
I mean, I was planning on attending once it's on the agenda. So, you know, whoever wanted to, that's fine. I don't know that they're going to need to speak on it for sure. I do know that they're going to want us to put together a little bit more of a plan. So that's, you know, something I'm going to try to line up what our ideas are for how we could use it and help support it. You know, like I said, I am worried that we can't get it. So I don't want to get us too far into that process and spend too much time on it unless we know we can get it as well.
Understood. Dawn?
Can we also begin a discussion with them about EMT help? Because if we have over 200 staff and then we have our nurses with limited capacity with everything else they've been doing along with contact tracing, somebody has to watch the nasal swabs. And so it might be a collaborative with us and the town, especially if EMTs, police, fire, if others are going to could come through a drive-through, but just to have that discussion too about what they could do to help with that.
Yeah, that's what we had.
EMTs can help in that same capacity as nurses to witness the testing.
Yes, that's what Lynn had talked about yesterday in our meeting. So we were going to put that on our sort of our thought process as to how we would help implement that.
Susan, while you were talking, or just before you did, we received the weekly update from Chief Cassidy, and Holliston is still in the red high risk level based on new cases in the 14-day period ending January 2nd. So I just wanted to share that with the committee. I haven't actually forwarded it to them like I normally do, as it just came in while we were meeting. Do you have anything else in regards to his email that you wanted to share?
Yes, I haven't read the email, but he and I were talking before this meeting. So I believe it was 6.2% positivity rate, which is very concerning. And again, as you know, the look back goes for that testing metric, it's as of last Saturday is the date that they enter for the testing there. And that means any cases that happened after that aren't recorded. It's very hard to tell what the next rate would be because, as he's explained to us before, the more people that get tested versus the amount of positive cases that are in that pool, it doesn't always equate that. You can have a lot of cases, but have a lot of people tested, so it might not, the positivity rate might not be as high, even though you have a lot of cases, which is kind of seems counterintuitive, but it is the way it is. So obviously people are getting tested still, and that also plays into the concerns, which I wanted to talk about next. My sad news of still worries about sports. As you probably heard, I did ask for some updates from Matt Baker to share with you, and I've been talking with the Tri-Valley, some of the Tri-Valley teams. Many of the teams that already started practicing prior to the break have had to quarantine, and that is still true. Some of the teams that were quarantined in the Tri-Valley League have come out of quarantine, but there are right now, there are 5 TVL teams currently in quarantine due to COVID cases, because if you have a positive player on the team, the whole team would have to quarantine because if they've been playing together and sitting together. And that also, once they're playing a game versus practice, that means for our purposes, both teams would have to. So if it was the other team that had a positive case, our students would also have to quarantine for that time period. It's so far all of the TVL schools that have had the starting times. We're one of the few that haven't started as far as at least practices, but all of them that have started have been impacted and had to quarantine various teams throughout this time. They also still are having differing spectator policies. Some of them are allowing spectators. We are not, no matter what we do. We've already said if we're not allowing parents to visit in the building, we're not allowing anyone in the building during the day, why would we open up our buildings and potentially put more risk in the building? So that would not be one we were recommending anyhow. The ADs are meeting frequently. Things are very, I have to say, it's very varied how people are approaching this. There's a lot of people that want us to push forward sports, and I understand that. But I will say collectively with our health director, emergency management director, nurse director, myself, Travis Ahern was on the meeting. Keith and I have been talking. We are still very concerned because we still don't know what we don't know. Now, we did have 2 positive cases as of today. I heard of 2 more. We have not had a significant increase. You saw the increases we had earlier in the week from the holiday break. So that was significant. Since that time period, I have not heard of significant cases. However, it is quite likely that we do have a lot of students out right now getting tested, and it is quite likely that some of the testing gets delayed and test results because of all the holidays. They said there was a lot of testing after the New Year's as well, which we thought that would be less than Christmas, but it seemed like it was still very significant. I heard, 2 million people traveled. So there was still a lot of travel through New Year's. So we don't know if there are a lot of cases still out there waiting for test results, which the good news is they haven't been in school. So there would be no transmission there, and we still haven't seen transmission at school. But it is, along with the community rise, if there are the student rise as well, where do we go next with sports? I just wanted to put it out there to you. Certainly, I think it's really a good time to have a vote on what you feel is the best thing to do, because as of how we left it, if we'd be starting on Monday, at least for tryouts and practices, and certainly would have all of the mitigation in place that we would be required to do so, and we're being very careful. But I do think it's important to be, that the school committee is feeling that they can make the decision on whether we move forward or whether we delay. Ashland did go remote again for next week, so they will not be starting sports. So that is, new news as well that I forgot to share. So, it's a who knows where we go from here as far as if we start in quarantine.
But Susan, wait, can you just clarify? So you said there are 5 of the TVL teams in quarantine. Is it 5 schools that all of their winter athletics are in quarantine, or is it all one sport, or is it varied? Because if there's 12 teams in the league, and there's 12 schools in the league, and there's different winter athletics, who is it affecting? Because
I asked Matt not to give me very specifics. I don't want to be, it's 5 teams total. So he didn't say it was 5 districts, but I believe it is a team per district from our conversation earlier, but I don't want to say that definitively.
So wait, I think we can help a little bit maybe, but we could probably need the better information from Matt. But there's fewer sports in the winter than there are certainly in the fall. And that pretty much brings it down to basketball and track. What am I missing? Swimming. Are any of these sports just flat out canceled because of COVID? So, Dawn, you're nodding. So
we're only offering hockey, basketball, and then we were going to be starting our the co-op teams would start in gymnastics, and hockey, girls hockey would be co-op.
So
we're
it's
not in track.
So indoor really track February 22nd, I believe, is what Matt Baker said.
So I could be wrong. My sense is the impact on this is probably around basketball, but I could be wrong. I think we kind of need to understand that, but I guess my question would be, how is the league handling this? Because this really messes up schedules. It's like college football started, except half the teams couldn't start because they were in quarantine, and then they were trying to catch up in the end, So how is the TVL handling the teams that are in quarantine? Are they rescheduling the games for later, or are they waiting to hear from all schools as to whether or not they're participating at all?
So the games were just starting. So as of tonight, I heard that TVL hockey games began last night, and basketball and gymnastics will begin this weekend. The hockey games last night seemed to run smoothly. However, some of the teams are quarantined. So yes, what they're doing is, my understanding is that any team that didn't get to play the game, they're trying to reschedule. So it's going to be a constant, shuffle.
Yeah. The other issue, though, that bothered me from our last meeting, and I didn't push on it, but it bothered me, and we talked about it a little bit, is we knew that these kids were going to go ahead and practice whether we had practice or not. I would rather us have practice under Holliston protocols. I think it can be done safely. I'm not willing to say let's cancel or postpone sports right now. I cannot look people in this in the camera and say, I don't think it's safe for your kids to play right now. My own personal experience is showing that protocols are in place, and if they're in place and being followed, it is safe. And I just think we're hitting winter, and it's isolating as it is, and this is just going to be a nightmare for these kids. I'm concerned about the mental health of these kids right now. Dawn?
I am also a proponent of moving forward with a winter sports program, and here's why. I do think they're going to play, whether they play with our schools or without. And if they're with our schools, they have the positive influence of a coach who's going to say, these are the rules, and if you don't follow them, you're not part of this. In addition, there's an equity issue where we know club sports have been going on. So families that have the disposable income to spend $2,000 or $3,000 on AAU basketball or club soccer or hockey, they have their kids doing them, and they have been doing them. I looked at the data that came out today in Massachusetts. There's like a weekly and monthly report. This was the look back from December 6th through January 2nd in terms of clusters and cases. Childcare. 155 clusters, 478 cases. K through 12 schools, 30 clusters, 121 cases. Organized athletics, 14 clusters, 63 cases. That was through all of Massachusetts for the duration of the last month. We have other Tri-Valley leagues that have been doing it. I would need much more specific information on if there have been kids that have developed COVID while playing sports. Were they transmitting it to anyone else on that team, or is it simply a matter of quarantining? Are their rates of COVID higher than the rates of the general K through 12, or maybe we need to just look at it as 9 through 12? Is there a specific sport where we're seeing higher rates? Massachusetts has put out guidelines on everything, including sports. Things like gymnastics are considered low risk because we know there's like 7 to 10 kids and they're not by anyone and they have a mask. This is their season. You know, one thing that struck me when I was at the middle school about a week, earlier this week, there were kids playing on a snow pile. Before we went for break, there were kids outside playing together. And we see that with our younger kids. They're outside with recess, they play together, they have lunch together. Our high schoolers do not have that socialization going on. It's a very dystopian, you go in, it's just class, it's a small, the socialization part is gone. And I'm so thankful that our theater and music program has been able to exist the way it has. But we do need to do something for our sports kids if we can do it safely. And there's a lot of options in doing it safely. I mean, there's 8 pages of modifications and 10 pages of modifications for things like basketball, hockey, gymnastics, in terms of what infectious disease specialists have worked with people in sports to come up with ways to modify these sports. Does it mean there's no risk? No, it's risk modification. But kids have been playing these, and we need to let our kids play them and be part of these leagues.
And Louise, and then Catherine.
I agree. I think we should go forward because I think, look, it's not actually going to get better for quite a while. And I think if we put the mitigation protocols in place, we can manage this effectively until we can, and then we'll know, just like we're dealing with in schools. But I think we'll be much more, I think the risk that we create for isolating these students is so much greater. And I just wouldn't want to take that away right now if we don't have to.
Catherine?
So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I would love to see sports go forward. I think that the Holliston School District has done an outstanding job at protecting our students. I don't think other school districts are taking the same approach or the same, they're not having the same success in contact tracing. They're not having the same policies around spectators. They're managing spectators differently. So I'm not concerned about our students being around our students, but I am concerned with what happens when they start interacting with other towns. I do think that there is some data about certain sports being in close contact with each other. Certainly like swim and dive and gymnastics are, very individual. And so they're sports that are much easier to manage. I think, I don't know if it was Donna and Louise that just said that, I think we could manage this. I do. I'm very concerned with how we have to interact with other people in other places and the way that they're managing it. And that's the wild card that makes me nervous for the safety of the students when if we all of a sudden have to do contact tracing with a town that is running up against resistance or handling it differently than we are. And so I would love to see them, minimally, I'd love to see them practice, and so they can be socializing and get out there in a way that we can control it. I know that sounds like a really sort of parental approach, but I'm very concerned about them playing and interacting, especially the co-op teams, when you're with people who are from other towns and that these things are being handled differently there.
And Catherine, so Matt Baker and I had a conversation about this I also spoke to one of the parents with the girls hockey, and we had this conversation about the rinks. Holliston said they will not skate if there is a spectator, if they allow spectators. Like, our policy is no spectators. So if the other teams can't meet our criteria, they won't play with that. You got to go by Holliston's criteria, and that's where we need, Matt to have a little bit further conversation with the other ADs about we have to take the most stringent protocols from each district and implement them into the plans. Cynthia?
But is your concern, Catherine, not necessarily when they're playing together, but let's say random town over there is not managing the day-to-day in-school experience as well and having as much success, and then by virtue of that, their athletes are more, is that your concern?
I mean, it's all connected, right? I mean, so if they're in school and they can't successfully do the contact tracing, and then they come to sports, and then we need to go back to them and try to do, contact. As Susan was saying, like, every different towns are approaching this differently. Like, some towns don't make siblings quarantine.
Yeah.
We do. Other towns don't. So it's just, that makes me nervous. Like, we're working so hard to keep our students in school, and the introduction of other towns' policies could present holes for us.
In the world of prioritized testing, is there any move for athletes, across the league, to be prioritized in weekly testing?
And Louise, I have heard of some schools requiring their athletes to be tested or including them in the testing. Yes, I thought, and please correct me, the group that plays hockey together it includes Medway, and didn't they offer to allow our students to be tested in their testing program if they were going to play with Medway students? Do you guys recall that?
That seems good.
Okay, I'm not gonna, we have to look into it, but I thought that was something that was said.
Cynthia?
I just wanted to echo what Catherine was saying about those protocols. And I think I'm also concerned in light of what the superintendent, Jim Adams from Ashland, the letter to his community about the reluctance and uncooperative nature of some of the contract tasting happening. So I feel like if we're along with, I certainly want our athletes to be able to play. I think you're all right that our students are going to want to do it no matter what. And as long as we can have some control over the conditions with which they are playing, I think that makes sense. But I also want to make sure that if they are going to engage, that there's going to be no resistance to any of the contact tracing that we need to do in the case that we have some, positivity or some transmission. So and across the board with the other teams that we're playing with. So I think you're right, Stacey, we need to go by whoever has this more strict protocol. We have to follow that. And that's just being respectful of the district that you're working in with, as far as I'm concerned. Right? I mean, if we're all in this together, then it's like, okay, well, if Holliston has these protocols, then sure, go. We'll follow that, just as we would if they had a different protocol.
Yeah, so this has been sent out from Ashlyn and the superintendent, and he shared this with me today, and he shared it to the community. There were 26 positive cases at the high school this week, and many of those are, if not all, many were sports related. And I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody, but we are in where we are this week because people were not forthcoming. And again, I'm not trying to point a finger, but if some of our sports related situations had just been upfront with us, we might not have had to go remote all week this week. We've had people anxious because they think it's going to be, we're not judging. I'm not here to judge, but if you're just forthcoming and honest and tell us, then maybe we could have made decisions quicker, but it's spent, I can't tell you how many hours because people were hesitant because they thought they were going to throw somebody under the bus. And by doing that, we're here with our high school remote when kids may have been in person, maybe not the full week, but they could have been in person. I don't think we would have been out of school the whole week. So this is all, and it's sports is driving a lot of this because people are anxious because they want to start.
Right.
So I get that. So I'm fine. I just want you to vote if you want to start on Monday or not. I just want you to understand that we need to make a strong message that we need our sports students and all students and parents to come forward and be honest because we are in this together.
Yes.
And if we do this together, we may be able to keep going.
Yes.
But if we're withholding information, we may not be able to keep going because it is the way it is right now.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be absolutely, they have to agree to that.
Andy, then Lisa.
Yeah, two things. I think I definitely want to echo that. I would be really disappointed if we had athletes that weren't disclosing information or parents that weren't. I would expect that would be something which would limit them from participation for a considerable period of time. But what I wanted to clarify, is this only for this specific season? Because I know that supposedly there's this wonderful idea that we're going to run a winter 2 season and have football later on and things like that. I assume that any decision we make is for situationally for this season for right now, and that we're going to revisit this before every season. Is that correct?
I would recommend that we do that if that wasn't the expectation, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, anything could change even in this season. And just one more thing that I forgot to mention, and I know, Dawn, you had shared that with me and other people have. Greater Boston League, which is, I think I looked into it with Matt Revere, Medford, out more North Shore and things. They are actually holding off and having no winter season until February 1st, and they pushed their whole season out. So that would have been lovely if we could have all just agreed to push it out, and then we would kind of not be in this conversation right now, and kids would have gotten to do it, but it isn't. Other leagues have started, so, it is where we are, so we need to make a decision on what we have.
So, Susan, in terms of that, Greater Boston, I think League did it just this week. Was there any discussion with Tri-Valley of pushing everything out?
So I did, of course, this was during I was reaching out to the superintendents last night about this via text and sending out that information saying, anyone want to jump on the bandwagon? And then, of course, we heard about the Capitol. So our conversations turned to that Capitol building. So I think people are so overwhelmed right now, and they've already started. So it's very hard to undial it if they're already in the midst of it. The game's just started last night, so they would have to literally halt right now. And I don't think anyone in some of the towns, they've already voted. They're not willing to change their mind. And I want the kids to play as well. This is not about, some of my own kids played sports. It's really incredibly important to them. My own kids played in band and music and all kinds of things. So I know how important these things are. As long as we can do it safely. Yeah, ideally, I would have loved it if we could have postponed it till February 1st, but we're not united for some reason. Some towns that I've heard of, other superintendents that I know in other areas, they canceled completely for the season. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just, we have the cards we have, and we have to make decisions based on those.
Well, Susan, I mean, any town that quote unquote started, I don't think they could have executed more than one game or maybe a practice and a tryout. Like it's still the first week or so of January here. So I don't know, maybe it's worth just throwing that poll out to the 12 districts again and just saying, hey, had a discussion with our school committee. Everyone wants the kids to be able to play sports. That's not the question, but there is some concern. And, what if there was a 2 or 3 week delay to the season? That doesn't necessarily prevent, I suppose, another district from choosing to practice, but it would delay the game schedule. And I don't think that's the end of the world. And I think even districts that might be bummed or hesitant, they might consider it. I think that's worth an email.
Well, I was on another meeting today. I forgot. I actually had that conversation at my Zoom meeting with a number of the same superintendents and said, is it only Ashland and I that have not, and Holliston that have not started yet? Framingham has not started as well. So the other districts, when I asked if anyone was thinking of anything different, it was pretty clear that they've made their decisions and they're moving forward from the conversations we had today. Because it's their school committees had to vote as well, and people have already moved forward and they just want to keep this going.
Okay.
Then Catherine? Lisa?
Sorry, didn't hear you. With, a little concern, I definitely support going forward with sports because of the mental health concerns, because of all the things that everyone else has just covered, and because I have a lot of faith in our athletic director and the coaching staff. But I wouldn't be as nice as Susan is in talking to parents who are not being cooperative about contact tracing. I feel like that is a minimum that we need for people to be able to participate. I think that, for the most part, people are doing the right thing, but, the few people who are, still think doing parties is okay and are still traveling and doing all these extra risky things. I think that, that stuff has to be, if you want your kid to play sports, you have to sacrifice, I think, in other areas, like my kid's going to school every day and I'm so grateful he's able to do that, but we do nothing else, nothing. And because, you can't eliminate the risk, but you have to mitigate your risk. And I feel like, if we really want to keep sports going, we really have to have, great parent cooperation in terms of making sure that your kids are being safe outside of school and sports, making sure you're being 100% cooperative in terms of contact tracing. I've heard the stories too about people not being very forthcoming when we try to do contact tracing, and that's completely unacceptable. I mean, I think that is just a condition of being part of a community. I think that, no one's trying to shame anyone, no one's trying to be judgmental, but we have to have cooperation from our community, or we're not going to be able to keep sports going, and we're not going to be able to keep the schools open. So, I mean, I think I hope that I want to encourage administrators and our nursing staff to be a little more direct and don't feel like we have to be careful not to hurt parents' feelings, because I feel like there are people who are not cooperating with contact tracing. Let's call that out and say, this is unacceptable, because there's no room for that right now. And I'm not talking about publicly shaming anyone. I'm not talking about naming names. So please don't anyone, start beating me up on Facebook. But I do absolutely think that in those private conversations between, either nurses or administrators and parents, we need to say, this is absolutely unacceptable. You have to cooperate because you're part of a community, and, this is a responsibility that you have to your community. Rant over.
Catherine? Sorry.
So go ahead.
Just because information's coming in, I'm trying to get more as we speak to make sure I've got details. We don't have from what Matt's telling me, it seems like a 50-50 split as far as basketball versus hockey, as far as teams that are quarantining. So it's not really clear cut in that. We don't have specific information because it's confidential, which teams and which people, but he's not hearing that any of these towns are doing any testing of their athletes right now, including Medway. They've talked about it, but they don't have that in their plans yet. Right now, Medway is only testing staff. He is starting to work on a testing plan for students, but again, this is all, it's all in the works as we speak.
Catherine?
I was just thinking that how I wish this were next week and we had more information about what, all of the the delayed testing that came from New Year's and that sort of thing. The viruses mutate, right? And the ways that viruses mutate is towards being more contagious and less lethal. So as we move through this and as we move through the spring, and viruses mutate constantly. So as we move through that process and move through the spring, more and more people are going to get this for reasons that are not, we're going to go through contact tracing and we're not going to be able to find out where it came from because they're simply not going to know. And I think it's really, really important that we give air to that, because people get COVID without fault. And when we start associating shame with COVID, then it seems like that this is why people are hiding it and why they're not being forthcoming. And people get COVID. You can get COVID going to Stop and Shop. You can get it going to Target. Like, it's out there. It's everywhere. People get it. And so I feel like we need to have a little bit more of that conversation so that we can understand that, like, getting it is not the problem. Hiding it is the problem. So if we can have more conversations about normalizing the fact that, it's over decades, COVID-19 is going to turn into a regular cold. This is not going to go away. It's just going to mutate itself to a point where it becomes a regular virus that we get all the time, and nobody even thinks about it anymore. That's not anytime soon, but that's how viruses operate. So if we can get to that point, no one's even going to think about it. Right now, we're not there. And so as we get to a place where viruses mutate more quickly and become more contagious, people are going to get it. Everybody's going to know someone that has it. If you don't already, I'd be amazed. So I just want to say that, because the contact that you have with a sports team might be where you get it. The contact that you have with a church might be where you get it. The contact you have with the person at Target might be where you get it. And we can do our best to try to make people aware that they've been exposed, but only if we work together. And if people start resisting this process, we're just not going to have sports. We can't. If people start quarantining all the teams, then if we can't work together, then we can't do it.
Yeah.
I want there to be sports. I only played sports in high school. Those were my curricular activities. And I really feel strongly about having them, but I also really feel strongly about public health and working together to have a safe environment. I am very concerned about the way other towns are approaching things, and I know we can't do anything about that. And I too, Lisa, have faith in our administration and in Matt Baker and the way that things are being handled. I would be lying if I said I'm not nervous. Very nervous, but I see both sides.
Yeah, Louise.
Just sorry, one final quick comment. I do think if, Susan, if you feel all the other towns have made this decision to move forward, I do think advocating for athlete testing and prioritizing it, we're probably talking about 30 kids across the 3 teams where there might be the most, or the 2 teams, the most likely exposure. And if they can expand it from there, great. But any school district that's regularly testing staff should really be considering prioritizing athletes.
Yeah, we have JV basketball, varsity basketball, JV girls, varsity, and then boys hockey, and then the girls is a co-op. So it's actually more. If you get the whole number, but it's considerably more than that. I was going to ask. I'm going to have Matt do this as well in his communication. That carpooling cannot happen for that reason, because that's some of the evidence we're getting is that some of the contact has been through carpooling as well. So that cannot happen for our athletes, and shouldn't be happening for anybody, but for our athletes especially.
Well, that's my issue that I'm coming from is, as parents, we need to parent and make sure we're mitigating risk, because I believe that the virus is spreading more so from the activities outside of the sport. It's not playing the sport that's necessarily, I'm not a doctor, so I'm saying this with just from what I've seen. It's the parties, it's the participating in tournaments that you're not supposed to participate in. It's the carpooling. and, the spectators. And I understand as a parent wanting to be there to watch your kid, whether it's their first year as a freshman or their last year as a senior. But we will need to vote to shut down sports if people do not follow the protocols. And I will be the first one to make that motion. I believe in that. I worry about the mental health of our children. But every parent needs to be responsible in making sure that their family is following the protocol. And I understand I'm being preachy, but I will be the first one to vote that we knock off all sports if people cannot follow the protocols. It is so important. If you want your kid to succeed and you want them to be, healthy mentally, follow the rules, please. And it's evidence that we haven't followed the rules because these kids were practicing over winter break. And I don't know a lot of kids that can just cough up some money to rent ice for $300 an hour. So let's get it together. Let's do this. Let's do it right. Let's do it well. We're in capable hands with the superintendent, the athletic director, our administrators. Are we ready for a vote on this, or do we need any further discussion? Okay, so we just want to make sure, Susan, that Matt works with the other ADs to make sure that we are following the most stringent protocols from each district. Someone might be doing something even more stringent than us in something. So we just want to make sure that that is happening. Is there a motion to approve the winter season of hockey, gymnastics, girls co-op hockey, basketball, anything else?
Swimming and diving.
No swimming and diving.
Gymnastics.
The pool is still closed, so I think it's just gymnastics, hockey, and basketball.
Yeah.
Or track is a decision in February, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So for those to begin on Monday, January 11th, 2021.
So moved.
Second by Dawn.
Moved by Anne Louise, seconded by Dawn. All in favor. Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi? Yes. Susan, is there anything else under the COVID update?
There's just a number of things, and I mean, it doesn't have to be shared today because I'm trying to still assimilate it. There a lot of things are changing at the state level. I started to say that there may be some free testing coming out available to schools, and I'll jump right on that if that comes our way. Definitely heard today that there's more grant money coming, federal money. So Keith, you probably didn't even hear that. It was hot off the presses from the commissioner today, but I'm assuming it'll be going out to business managers very shortly. If you didn't get it already, don't have all the specifics, but it looks like we'll have some money. And that's why once we know what that money is, that also can be used for testing. So, we have all these resources coming in, and that's why we've got to just jump on every possibility right now, because it does sound like these monies are getting released very quickly, and we will have access to them very quickly as well. Keith, did you hear anything more?
Yeah, the impression was that it's clearly not going to be as substantial as CARES, at least at this distribution. It's going to be much closer to the ESSER money, which was based on the Title I formula, which was in the low 50s. So it's not going to be a cure-all for what we need to finish this year out. But, 3 nickels still make 15 cents. I think what I just added up quickly. But, we just got to get there, that's all.
Yeah, and even if it's not a lot, but it's enough that we can earmark for some of the testing, I think that's probably our priority right now, any funds that we get moving forward, because fortunately, Keith purchased so many supplies for us, and we're still in good shape for supplies, Keith?
Well, yes, and actually, I was something at the end, Dr. Kusk, I did want to talk about the deal with Eversource that I got, so.
Well, you know what? I'll just leave it at that, because, I'm sorry, I did want to say assessment and accountability came up today. That's probably an important one. Because of circumstances, seniors are not going to be held harmful related to MCAS. They need only to pass their course and show competency. So they have to make sure they've gotten the correct courses they should have for their senior year. And that they make sure that our high school needs to make sure that they have enrolled all seniors in the courses that they need to graduate effectively. They also are going to be shortening the testing window for grades 3 to 8, and the testing will be for half the time. So tune in, we'll get more details on that. It's also possible that MCAS can be pushed way out and even potentially to the fall. So this is all unwinding, and we will know more over the next weeks, but they're definitely coming back with and not holding districts harmful, obviously for good reasons this year, and making sure that any data we get from any testing that does roll out will be used anecdotally to help support students versus, because we know there's going to be students falling behind, hopefully not as far in Holliston because of our model, but all students are impacted by COVID right now. And Keith, you want to follow up with that? Or did I see someone's hand go up? No.
No, I actually, sorry, Susan, I just wanted to confirm, did you say that seniors do not have to have an MCAS for this year? Is that what you're saying?
That's what was said today. If I have notes in front of me from the mass superintendents as well, so that's how it was understood to me that they will be held harmless if they, if that's the only thing that they had remaining.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Then Anne Louise.
I believe that the SAT testing that we usually have at our school was canceled in the spring, and I didn't think we had it in the fall. Are we arranging to have the SATs here in Holliston in the spring, April, June, May, AP testing? Do we know if we will be able to host any of those things?
Do you know, Peter, I remember seeing earlier in the year that they were looking for people to help with, was it PSATs versus SATs at the time? And I don't think they ever happened, correct?
But we did do some testing this fall.
Then it might have been PSATs. I remember seeing something about maybe it was PSATs happened and looking for people to proctor. I haven't heard anything else. And if you don't have an update, Peter, we can get one for next time.
Yeah, I don't. I know they're doing everything that can be done, but I'm not sure specifically what that is. So we can get an update on that.
Thank you.
Anne Louise?
Sorry. I got interrupted while you were talking through this, Susan, so I'm not sure I heard it all correctly, but our sophomores will have to go, so it's sophomores and down that will have to go through MCAS testing and just the seniors that'll be held harmless?
Yes, that's what he had told us today. However, again, it's not even definitive as to whether it will happen at the end of the year. It could even get pushed out to the fall. Testing's going to happen at some point. They just don't know when, but they will hold 12th grade harmless.
Oh, okay. So here's my only concern, and I don't know how or through what channels maybe the superintendent, that you can advocate upward on this. I'm sure they need to get a pulse on where kids are at and identify, where the slip has been across the state in terms of, different skills, disciplines, what have you. My concern is the time it takes to do MCAS testing and prepare for it in an environment where our kids are not getting the same time on learning they would ordinarily anyway. And I totally appreciate the challenge here that the state is facing as well, but I would really hate to see it happen. Like, if we had to give up a week to MCAS testing in a year when we were really struggling just to meet time on learning, it just feels like insanity to prioritize that now. So I don't know if it happens after the last day of school or if it happens next year, what they decide to do, but I am concerned about that.
Yeah, he did say that grades 3 to 8 will be reduced to half the amount of time for that reason. It didn't seem to reflect to 10th grade, but he did say grades 3 to 8 for that allotment.
All right, Keith, tell us about your deal.
Well, it wasn't just my deal. We found out we have this ongoing relationship with Eversource that started back when they did a couple of projects for us for free at the high school, energy efficiency products. They first did the lights in the field house and then came back about 9 months later and put motion detectors and upgraded lighting fixtures in the high school, again, for free. Turns out I knew somebody, actually I knew his wife, somebody for Eversource who was in charge of the the rebate programs for energy efficiency. So that got started there, and I met this other person named Steve Gratton through that. As part of the Green Communities Grant, we met with Steve Gratton because the Eversource is a partner in that, and he brought up this program that they were having for air purifiers that they want to support schools, et cetera, et cetera. So, I did a lot of research to find an air purifier that would do the large classrooms that we have. Many schools I know purchase smaller ones that I'll say aren't as good. They don't have as many, air turnovers, per hour that you're supposed to have. Again, because I keep attending these webinars on things and I got way too much health stuff in my head. But so we finally got the units in a couple of weeks ago. We started deploying them. We're about halfway through deploying them. These are for all the large classrooms. We purchased 208 of them at a cost of $51,896. If you look in your package, you'll see there's a thing called letter of approval that Eversource is covering $41,600 of that $51,600. So the 208 units cost us about $10,000. So that's the first bit of good news and good story there. In my subsequent conversations with them, and you can see the authorization date on this is December 14th, when calling them to thank them, again, because you always want to keep greasing the skids as often as you can, they still had money left over. So I said, could I do some of my smaller classrooms and maybe some other rooms that we have? And they go, well, we still have money. So we've ordered another 60 smaller units at the cost of $13,142 that right now we've been approved for, but it's not final authorized yet because not everything's in yet. But they're going to cover 12,000 of that. So for $1,100, we're adding another 60 units as well. Dr. Kuska, now the third arm of this, third arm, well, you know what I mean, is Dr. Kuska found out from the state that they had purchased some air purifiers, and when I initially saw the specs on them, they weren't big enough. But again, I'm now doing smaller rooms that they have a supply left over. So she made a request for another 70 units today. So, at some point we're going to have bathrooms air purified and stuff like that, possibly. Who knows? We're going to be putting them all, but we keep pumping these things in there. As long as they want to keep giving us to free or for next to nothing, we'll keep doing that. But so again, the overall good story is that, it looks like we're going to get about $53,000 worth from Eversource to cover a cost of $64,000. So I think that's good news there. So
Fantastic.
You're hired.
For
you.
Yes, that was supposed to be at the top of my list, Keith. That was one of my good news items that I forgot to have you share then.
Well, we need to intersperse good news with bad news throughout the conversation, right? Do administrators, do you have anything else to update us on COVID? Oh, Peter does.
Yeah, so we reviewed the cohort schedule. Just there's questions about whether we were even, and we were in pretty good shape, but we would like to recommend changing Wednesday, March 31st from a cohort A day to a cohort B day. That would result in 86 cohort A days and 85 cohort B days in K-8, and it also would even out the second semester to make them 42 days each at the high school. So it's a small change. It's we are in pretty good shape already, but that's the kind of the recommendation as far as that.
Oh, thank you for doing that, Peter, because I forgot to put that on my note to follow up. So that was helpful. Thank you. Anne Louise?
Thank you, Peter. I first of all, this is like a Rubik's Cube. I had to draw it out and make sure I got this straight. But so what I'm seeing here is we're making Thursday a cohort B day, but that's after the assessment. Did I read it wrong? It said Wednesday and Thursday.
Oh wait, no, I haven't got to that part yet.
Tuesday. Shoot. Okay, did I draw it out right? Wait, now I got to make sure I did this.
I think you're going to the second part that I haven't got to yet.
Oh darn. Okay.
The first part is just changing for the entire district the 31st of March from a cohort A day to a cohort B day.
Okay, sorry. I had a question about the second part. I can wait till you explain that.
The second part is we currently have scheduled exam days for the high school on Wednesday and Thursday, February 3rd and 4th. And the recommendation, which are both cohort B days, the recommendation is to change it to Tuesday and Wednesday, February 2nd and 3rd, so changing one of the days. And to have both of those days be remote days for exams so that we could do the core of the assessments, for everyone on those days. We would be looking at that entire week being for assessment and end of the course activities. So that would also give us a balance where we'd have a cohort A day in person on Monday. The cohort, we'd have a exam half day for say 2 of the 4 courses on Tuesday, fully remote. The other 2 courses fully remote on Wednesday, and then have a cohort B day on the Thursday. So giving an opportunity to do some of that in-person work on Monday and Thursday, but having the core assessments on Tuesday and Wednesday remotely, where again, all kids could do that at once because you don't have to do half and half because only half the kids are in school. Emily?
Okay, can I ask my question now?
Yep.
Okay, so I appreciate why you're trying to do this and to balance the in-school day for each of the cohorts, but I'm not sure it makes sense, and here's why. Thursday being a cohort B day is occurring after the assessments. So based on watching situations like this happen in a class where students have their final assessment and there may be a straggling day or 2 or even a week in a term, I don't think that's a high value classroom experience on Thursday for them. And they would be far better off having that day be an assessment day, understanding it's remote, and giving the kids the time to prep for it. One of the things that has always been a challenge at the high school is that there's 2 days for assessment. And for those of you who don't have high schoolers, typically, we have 4 blocks. So there's an A assessment, a B assessment, a C assessment, and a D assessment. And when they're back to back, that can make it very tough because you're running into 2 exams. And I know in theory, yes, the kids have all studied for weeks on end and they're so prepared, but not, and then they go into the next day with 2 more assessments. And so, to set it up where Tuesday and Wednesday are back-to-back double assessments just to prioritize the remoteness of it, if you will, and then come back to school Thursday and have a school day for the same class when they've just finished their final assessment. It's 1 day. They're not going to do anything meaningful that day. And I just think it's a waste of a period. And I don't mean to be harsh. I'd frankly rather see the Wednesday, Thursday flipped somehow, or, if that's what you're trying to do, and make Wednesday be an in-class day and Thursday remote. But I know that can mess things up with the buses and the other schools, or maybe it's a half, and 1 test per day. I mean, this is something I spoke with Susan about a week ago, where the concern around finals week is often that, well, first of all, going into it the week prior, there's often new material being introduced right up until the 11th hour. That's always been a challenge, not for every class, but for some classes. And then students are backed up against a tough 48 hours where their exams are occurring. And couldn't we have a true finals week for our high school students and give them 1 final a day over the 4 days? and they can still have a block for review with their class, whether it's remote or in person after that. But spread it out a little bit, and maybe that helps address the in-person versus remote thing. But I don't think having an in-person day after all the assessments have occurred adds much value for anybody.
This is an option that might make sense, is doing a Tuesday and Thursday instead of Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right. Yeah.
That I think would still, I mean, I think they're looking at, those in-person days as being, because I think they're trying to look at assessment a little differently this year. And so those in-person days still are mechanisms to assess what kids know, but the core time is those exam days. So maybe doing Tuesday and Thursday, so you have a Monday A day prior to the Tuesday exams, and then Wednesday, Thursday. If that would be acceptable, I think that would work for the high school as well.
But is there a way to separate, sorry, Sin, so the concerns I heard about the cohort A, cohort B were totally at the grades 8 and below. And I do have some friends in the high school and didn't hear so much concern from them. Can we look at the high school separately for that exam week? And
well, this is the high school.
But
this is just the high school.
But what about?
I don't think any changes were suggested for the lower schools.
Yeah, we weren't
after that week.
We weren't. We were changing the exam days so that we didn't have to fiddle with the cohort days.
Yeah.
Consistent across the district.
Right.
Tuesday and Wednesday would have worked for that purpose, but also Tuesday and Thursday works for that purpose too. So I think that would be a solution that takes into account some of the things that Anne Louise was mentioning while still working.
Yeah, I think that I agree with Anne Louise that like the day after the exams is not really a great high value day for in-person learning when there isn't going to be anything happening on after the fact, so to speak. So if we were trying to make the days equal in terms of instruction, it would make more sense to go further backdate that to another week where there'd be 3 days in person for a cohort B, for example. So they get that in-person content days.
Well, then the challenge is just getting through the material, right? So if you accelerate the exam to the prior week, I think that's going to add more stress for the teachers.
I'm not talking about changing the exam at all. I'm talking about just the days of instruction, because one of the things that they were trying to equal out was the days of in-person instruction. And, again, it gives you an actual in-day of being in person, but the instruction time is done because the semester is over.
Right, like the Thursday, I think we're all agreeing the Thursday is not a value day. That's just not doing anybody any favors.
But these changes to the exam week is not about we're not getting additional cohort B days or A days. I think we're pretty set with that. The days leading up to it are even.
Yeah.
We're in a good spot as far as that. This is just about when the exam days seem to make sense, given the fact that we do have cohort A and B days.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Tuesday and Thursday seem to make the most sense.
I think that works.
Yeah.
I think that works.
Great.
It gives them a little space in between, which I think is always helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.
Yep, thank you.
Susan, did you have anything else related?
Against my desire to keep speaking, I know that we want to end for people. I forgot to add that the nurses and I have talked, and the nurses have gone over the data, although it seems strange to be saying this because we keep changing our protocols as we get more information and related to data. So the data has shown that people who have traveled and have followed the mass travel orders, staff are following the mass travel orders. We had asked students to do the 5-day wait for testing when they return. It's keeping them out an exorbitant amount of time, and it's affecting families. Now, if the data was showing positivity rates increasing, then yes, we would continue to do so. Right now, we're not seeing evidence of transmission related to travel. Some districts are, so that could change as well. But we're recommending that we revert back to the follow the mass travel order for both families and staff right now. And then if the data changes, we would come back and explain that we would be changing our protocol at that time. We've been changing all along based on guideline changes. I think I sent out last week that we moved away from people had to wait 8 days for PCR testing, and then the guidelines came out again, and the CDC adjusted a little bit more. So right now we went back to that families who had positivity or close contact, we're asking them to wait 5 days, but they still have to quarantine for 10 days, even if they're negative. So, all these things keep changing, and I just wanted to explain why we're recommending that we revert back to the mass travel order of the 3-day related to travel versus the 5-day after the fact, because we have not seen transmission right now. But again, some districts are, so I would ask to change that back if it's not mitigating at that point. We're just keeping kids out too long right now in some cases.
I didn't follow that piece. So the travel, we're going from, instead of waiting 5 days, we wait 3 days before testing after traveling?
So we were telling families, because some districts have done this, and it was just, again, we put in all these mitigation things. We're trying to keep our kids safe. So we had gone to that after you travel, students have to wait 5 days before getting tested. And then if they're negative, they can come back. But you know how long it's taking to get results too. So in some families are keeping the kids out the full 10 days, and we can't always guarantee from travel that we can get them into a remote class. So now they're not necessarily getting synchronous instruction as well. So we're really worried about that. So I did ask the nurses to look at the data, and they're not, based on the people that did travel and got tested, they're not seeing positivity rates. The mass travel order says that you have to get tested within 72 hours of travel back to Massachusetts. So that could be before you come to Massachusetts or after. So it is a change to what we're doing right now. But if we were seeing that kids were coming back positive, we would leave it at the 5 days. But it's keeping kids out a significant amount of time, and they're missing a lot of synchronous instruction, especially the younger ones. So I was going to send that out tomorrow. I just wanted to explain that to you because I know that could have questions.
Catherine?
Is that retroactively? So if people traveled over the new year and they're still home?
Yes, if they were told to stay. Again, we've collected more data because the travel, just happened again, and that's why they're recommending that change. And I really try to support the nurses because they're really collecting lots of data and sharing that, and they're making decisions wisely, not making it rashly for sure. And I trust their decision making on this.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't questioning it. I was just clarifying.
Yes, sorry, yes, it would be. Yeah. So they could come back then, yes.
So Susan, I thought our 5 days was because the mass travel was requiring that you get tested within 3 days of coming back, by the way, not as before you leave, but you get tested within 3 days of coming back, and then it takes a couple of days to get results. And that was the 5 days. I didn't think we were requiring people to sit around for 5 days before they got the test.
We were, yeah.
Because that's
we had made that change.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. That's what we were. Okay.
Right, and because we were waiting, we were asking people to wait the 5 days for other reasons as well, and it was 8 days if you had been had a family member and things like that. We revise it so much; it's hard to even keep track of it. I'm getting lost as to where we are. I keep asking the nurses to adjust.
I know the reason was the viral load peaks around day 5, but
right.
It's highly trackable at around 3 or 4 days. So I guess okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understood it.
Cynthia?
Hopefully you're close to the end of that update, but just kind of looking forward, I'm just wondering whether the department has shared with districts their thoughts around vaccination and any role that the schools or our local departments of health will have in vaccinating as we become eligible for those, and what we can do to help facilitate that in any way, or whether they've even asked. I remember when I was in high school, we all got lined up in the gym to get shots for I think it was meningitis when I was in high school, just to date myself a little bit. So I just didn't know whether there was any conversation at all with the department discussing how we can help with the vaccine role, and if there is even a role for us to do so.
It sounded today like it's going to be similar what they're doing for first responders, that they would log on to mass.gov and get an appointment through there. And it's going to be, I think they're doing 2,000 a day at Gillette Stadium for our first responders. And I think some of our own officers are in line for that already, if I'm not mistaken. So it sounds like it's going to be the same for teachers. They don't know all the details yet, but that's what they're starting to roll out. So we should know that over the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Well, you know, we're here to help advocate however you need us to. So just say the word. It's 9:15. I want to take a temperature check. The last item on the agenda is to review the 2021-2022 school year calendar. And I would like to recommend that we move that to the next meeting because I feel like once we hit 9 o'clock, we tend to lose our productivity. Catherine?
Can I just actually, before you talk about the calendar, and I am not suggesting we talk about this right now, but maybe for next time, Susan and Peter, in the fall, we collected feedback from parents about how it's going, how their remote learning's going, there was a survey. And I know that I've received questions about like where that data went and how it's being responded to and how things are being, tweaked and changed. And there's been some concern about the remote learning, not the people coming in and out. I know we talked about that a little bit, but a space for feedback. And people have wondered, where their feedback went. And that's sort of just something that's floating out there. I was wondering if maybe we could cover that in the future.
Yeah, I think it might still be up on the website when I posted the different graphs up there, at least to show the data. I know we talked about it in one of the meetings. And then I believe, Peter, if you can refresh my memory, I believe the principals shared some of that out at staff meetings as well to discuss it. We did talk about doing another survey, and I'm open to doing that. I'm just hearing that we have a lot of survey burnout right now, so I'm trying to figure out what a good time to do that. Also, we did say that maybe we would want to do those specific to the building level versus doing the district one because it was hard to tease out those isolated pockets. So I think that was our recommendation. If I'm not mistaken, Peter, that we decided we would try to do something at the school level. We're trying to figure out the best time to do it again because people are just so burnt out from all of this as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and the days are long, but man, the year is flying. We're already halfway through the year. It's crazy. But we will put that on a future agenda item. We've talked about it a little bit also in terms of, what have we learned? What can we change in the way we educate students based on our new normal? So yes, we will definitely talk more about that. So I just, thumbs up, thumbs down. Can we move the calendar to January 21st? Okay, great. Okay, with that, I don't have a report on warrants. I haven't signed anything, so maybe the next meeting I will have signed some things. We do need executive session. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn from open session and move into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining with the HFT and for which we will not return.
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Cynthia. Roll call vote. Oh, you guys moved on me. Ms. Koshin?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Dr. Savard?
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead?
Yes.
Mrs. Listevnik?
Yes.
Mr. Morton?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi? Yes. It is 9:15. We are now adjourning out of open session and moving into executive session. Thank you all. Stay well, stay healthy, and we will see you soon. Good night, all.